Donald Trump is clearly unwell. And of course, we talked about this every single day on the campaign trail, that the oldest man to ever be elected president clearly isn't doing so well up here. And that became abundantly clear during a press conference today in which Donald Trump essentially lost the ability to speak. He was kind of mumbling and stammering and slurring. He couldn't find a direction in which he wanted to take what he was saying. But of course, the mainstream media refuses to cover this. They love talking about Biden's age, but Trump, not so much. And so we are going to do their job for them. But before we get into that press conference, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, of course, we pointed out on the campaign trail that Donald Trump was losing his mind, but we also pointed out the fact that he was lying about his promises. And so before we get into Trump's complete deterioration, I want to check out Hakeem Jeffries talking about the betrayal of his MAGA supporters.
We were told that grocery prices were going to decline on day one of this administration. On January 20th, grocery prices were going to decline. Why hasn't that happened? In fact, costs are going up, they're not going down. As it relates to groceries, housing, consumer goods, and insurance. Republicans made a lot of promises last year. They spent a lot of time talking about lowering the high cost of living while running away from Project 2025 as if it didn't exist. This year, Republicans have spent all of their time implementing the most extreme parts of Project 2025 and have done nothing, nada, as it relates to the high cost of living. In fact, the Republican budget plan, which represents a betrayal of the American middle class and all those who aspire to be part of the middle class, will hurt working class Americans, hurt middle class Americans, and hurt everyday Americans, children, seniors, and veterans by devastating Medicaid. The Republican Party a few weeks ago promised to love and cherish Medicaid. Cutting Medicaid by close to $1 trillion is an example of loving and cherishing Medicaid. It's an extraordinary statement that was made, and Republicans are doing the exact opposite in their budget markup right now.
I kind of want to say that Donald Trump isn't focused on the campaign promises that he made, but he's never been focused. He never cared. Never cared about costs, never cared about prices, never cared about his constituents for that matter. In his private life and now as president, Donald Trump has broken every promise he has ever made. That is what we should come to expect. But what is a little bit unexpected, or I guess we kind of predicted a while ago, is how quickly he's losing it up here. And of course, we are going to get into the moment in his press conference in which he was kind of losing it all. But it really started during this day of a state visit with the Prime Minister of India. It all kind of started to fall apart in this clip right here.
We had then called China, and China was very open to it. And then COVID hit, and then we had a rigged election. But now there was no rigged election. Now we have an election that was too big to rig. That's what my whole theme was, too big to rig. And they tried, but they didn't pull it off.
So that was just the beginning of when it got weird for Donald Trump. You know, whenever he's talking about vengeance, he's talking about the past, and he starts to get angry. And when he gets angry, he kind of loses control, which is exactly what we saw in this press conference, again, with the Prime Minister of India. And he was talking about the relationship between the two countries. But I think saying he was talking about it is giving him too much credit. You'll just have to check out what he had to say right here.
And under the framework we are announcing today, the United States and India are also joining forces to ensure that artificial intelligence and other advanced technologies are developed by the two of the most, really two of the most advanced nations intellectually and otherwise technologically. anywhere in the world. There's nobody very much closer. We have an incredible relationship there, and this is where it seems to be heading. And artificial intelligence, a very complex subject, but it seems to be where people want to be and they want to go, and we're leading right now by a lot, but other people will try to catch us. I don't know if they're going to be able to. We're going to make it available. We're going to make tremendous amounts of electricity available. We're going to let the people that are buying the electricity make their own electric plants, electric generation plants. And we've never done this in our country, but we're going to get it done very quickly. Lee Zeldin and his group are going to get the approvals in very rapid form. And we're calling it a national emergency, and that's exactly what it is. So
I can't really think of that many examples in which Donald Trump was so out of it. I actually can't. I just can't think of ones that were that much worse. Could you make out any of what he was trying to say? There was some vehicles, there was some relationships, but it just went all over the place. There was no direction. Usually in his angry rants, he just kind of tries to keep it centered on something, but I have no idea what Trump was trying to say there. And it's a question that you can ask and should of any conservative or any Republican you ever encounter. When has Donald Trump spoken coherently on policy ever? When has he delivered some bit of like his direction on tariffs or his thoughts on any other aspect of our trade policy? He just wants to come off strong, which is why it's so interesting to see him fall apart and how he'll try to make up for that. I think Donald Trump recognizes that he is getting weak, not just physically and mentally, but he's a lame duck president. It's why he starts speculating about maybe running for another term. It's why he said J.D. Vance wasn't his successor, because he doesn't want to be portrayed and really shown as weak as he is. And it just goes to show how much danger we're in abroad when we both have a president people can't trust, but also one they can take advantage of. And it's those foreign relations that, of course, come up a lot lately with the conversation around USAID. And that's why I want to check out this clip of Andy Kim actually giving a thoughtful response, unlike Donald Trump, and a clip right here.
You know, there is a room and there is a way for us to have a debate about the effectiveness and the efficiency of foreign aid. But what is happening right now in our nation, this is not the right way to go about it. You know, I hear about a pause here, but this is not a pause. We're seeing a gutting of the staff down to approximately 600. If it is a pause to look and reflect and see what is not working, what shouldn't be done, then let's pause on the gutting of the staff. Let's pause on the transfer of USAID under the State Department. So I just wanted to show that this is not a pause. This is not a review. This is already a reorganization, already a dismantling of USAID as it is. And I say that as someone who, a little over 20 years ago, stepped into the Ronald Reagan building for the very first day in public service. I served at USAID. I don't know who else in this room has. But I just tell you that I was proud to be able to serve at USAID and serve this country. And I worked at USAID, I worked at the Pentagon, I worked at the State Department. I've been a part of the 3 Ds of our foreign policy, of defense, diplomacy, and development, and seen that in action. So I disagree the idea that the type of power, the type of influence that we're trying to move forward on at USAID doesn't matter, that it's only about material military power. You know, we've seen how, for instance, when it was our help with the response to the earthquake in Turkey or the flooding in Pakistan, how that was something that was able to open up diplomatic channels to be able to move forward, build on the relationships. It was the work that we were doing through USAID that was able to get some of our diplomatic efforts, and including our military efforts, in a better position. And I said that as someone who walked into the Reagan building. There's a reason why USAID is in the Ronald Reagan building. It's because Ronald Reagan himself was a strong supporter of USAID and foreign assistance. He said, quote, "The ultimate importance to the United States of our security and development assistance programs cannot be exaggerated." He said, "Our national interests are inextricably tied to the security and development of our friends and allies." And when it came to people criticizing USAID, he said, quote, You know the excuses. We can't afford foreign aid anymore, or we're wasting money pouring it into these poor countries, or we can't buy friends. Other countries just take the money and dislike us for giving it. A lot of things that we heard here today. And Ronald Reagan concludes saying, well, all of these excuses are just that, excuses, and they're dead wrong. I heard today people talking about USAID as if it's charity. One person that said, quote, foreign aid is not charity. We must make sure it is well spent, but it is less than 1% of the budget and critical to our national security. The person who said that is Secretary of State Marco Rubio when he was with us in the Senate. He also went on to say that he urged President Biden to move forward and prioritize USAID funding because he said it, quote, counter the Chinese Communist Party's expanding global influence. And our current Secretary of State also said, quote, we don't have to give foreign aid. We do so because it furthers our national interests. That's why we give foreign aid. So I just wanted to be able to frame that. And when I worked at USAID, I actually worked at USAID under the Bush administration. I worked under a Republican president. I worked under an administrator there who was appointed by a Republican president, Andrew Natsios, who was just recently asked, could you specifically respond to what Elon Musk's functionaries at the Department of Government Efficiency have done in terms of actually shutting down USAID? And Andrew Natsios said, quote, it's illegal and it's outrageous. They have no right to abolish an agency, a statutory agency in the federal government. So I just wanted to raise this because what we're talking about here is efforts that are trying to end a long-standing bipartisan understanding about our strength as a global leader. And what we are also seeing, and this is something that just feels so personal, is just the demonization of public servants. We can have a debate about foreign aid, but we can do it without demonizing the people who have sworn an oath to this country. Many of them right now working in difficult and dangerous places. Some of them don't know how they're going to get back home right now because of how quickly all of this had been shut off. And what it really just shakes around the world when I hear from leaders in other countries is they say, what is the value of the American handshake right now? And I think that that has been detrimentally affected and really negatively affected over the course of the last couple weeks.
That is more like it. You can't even compare the two. It is insane always when you do the side-by-side comparison of Donald Trump speaking and then really any person with any semblance of common sense and concern for America's standing in the world. He is just really gone off one. And again, the mainstream media is not going to cover this. What a shock. But that's our job. And it's why we're going to be talking about it every single day on the show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.